When you hear people talk about cancer, the explanations are often way too simple, or they're just filled with these confusing metaphors about battles and wars. So today, I want to do something different. We're going to walk through how cancer actually develops inside the body, step by step, in purely biological terms. No fluff, just the facts. And really, this is the core idea we're going to unpack together. It's not some chaotic monster, and it's definitely not a punishment. It's just a biological process that has lost its normal, everyday constraints. And if you can grasp that one idea, it is the key to understanding everything else that follows. So here's how we're going to break it down. First, we'll look at the incredibly strict rules that keep our trillions of cells in line. Then we'll zoom in on how a single cell starts to break those rules. After that, we'll see the battle that happens with our own immune system. We'll track the unbelievably dangerous journey of metastasis, and we'll wrap up by reframing this whole disease, not as some kind of personal failure, but as what it is, a process of biology. All right, so let's start at the beginning with the safeguards. Before we can even begin to understand how things go so wrong, we really have to appreciate how they're supposed to work when everything's going right. And the most important thing to know is this. Your normal healthy cells, they aren't free agents. They live by a very strict, very disciplined code. Okay, so picture this. A normal cell is like a perfectly disciplined citizen. It follows orders, it respects its neighbor's boundaries, it knows when to grow, and, crucially, when to stop. It even cleans up its own messes. So the origin of cancer, it's just the slow, gradual loss of that discipline. It's not some big act of rebellion. It's what happens when the genetic rulebook itself gets damaged, and the brakes just get cut one by one. And this is absolutely crucial to understand. Cancer isn't, a single event. It's a process. It's a cascade of failures where multiple, totally independent safeguards break down, one after the other, often over many, many years. A single mistake is almost never enough to cause the disease. Okay, so if it's a cascade of failures, what kicks off that very first one? Well, the answer is in our genes. We have to look at the mutations that start this entire process. And here's something that really surprises a lot of people. Mutations are not rare. They're not these exotic events. They happen constantly in all of us. I mean, every single time one of your trillions of cells divides, there's a chance for an error, a typo in the genetic code. But our bodies aren't incredible either fixing that damage or just telling the damaged cell, hey, you need to self-destruct for the good of the team. Honestly, if every mutation caused cancer, none of us would survive childhood. But here's the thing, and this is so important. Not all mutations are created equal, not by a long shot. For cancer to get a foothold, the damage has to happen in very specific kinds of genes. The ones that are like the master controllers, the ones that regulate growth, manage DNA repair, or trigger cell death. In other words, you have to damage the rulebook itself before a cell even thinks about ignoring the rules. And what happens when one single cell gets just the right combination of these critical mutations? Well, it gets a tiny, tiny advantage. Maybe it divides just a little bit faster, or it dies a little bit slower than its neighbors. And this allows its descendants, who, remember, inherit all those same mutations, to slowly start taking over. This process, it's called clonal expansion, and it's the moment that one bad cell's family line begins its long, destructive journey. Okay, so up until now, we've been really zoomed in looking at what's happening inside a single cell. But here's the thing, that cell doesn't exist in a vacuum. It has to deal with its entire environment, and most importantly, with our own immune system. And this brings us to what is, honestly, the million-dollar question, right? If these cancer cells are so abnormal, why doesn't our incredibly powerful immune system just find them and destroy them? Well, the truth is, sometimes it does, but very often, it can't. The answer really comes down to this idea of identity. You see, a virus or a bacteria, it basically screams, I don't belong here, to your immune system. But a cancer cell, it's different. It comes from self. It's one of our own cells that has just gone wrong. So especially in the beginning, it looks and acts almost normal. It doesn't set off the same kind of alarms. It's a master of disguise, and it exploits the very systems that are designed to prevent our immune cells from attacking our own healthy tissues. And it's not just hiding, oh no. A developing cancer is actively manipulating everything around it. It can trick the body into growing new blood vessels to give it fuel. It can actually be protected and even supported by things like chronic inflammation. And as it evolves, it gets better and better at putting on a chemical cloak, making itself basically invisible to patrolling immune cells. It's a battle fought not just cell to cell, but across the entire local environment. And that brings us to the stage that is, frankly, the most dangerous part of cancer: metastasis, or the ability to spread. You see, an early contained cancer is one kind of problem, but a cancer that has spread throughout the body, that is a fundamentally different and much harder challenge. You have to imagine this journey of metastasis. It's just this brutal, brutal obstacle course. A cell has to break free from its home, invade a blood vessel, survive this incredibly hostile journey through the bloodstream where it's being attacked, get out at a totally new location, and then somehow start a new colony in a foreign environment. It is an incredibly inefficient process. The vast majority of cells that try this die. But cancer is a numbers game. It only takes one successful pioneer to start a new distant tumor. All right, for our final section, I want us to zoom out a bit and talk about the human side of all this. Because after you understand the biology, it is so crucial that we put it in the right context, a context that's completely free from misplaced blame. And this might be the single most important thing to take away from our entire discussion today. While lifestyle choices can absolutely influence the probability, the chance of getting cancer, they don't determine the outcome with any certainty. It's a process that's rooted in biology, in genetics, and frankly, in random chance. And that is why blame, whether you aim it at yourself or at the world, is simply not a useful or an accurate way to understand this disease. So let's pull everything together into one honest summary. Cancer isn't some sudden, mysterious thing. It develops when a very specific set of conditions are met. First, the cell's regulatory systems have to fail, one by one. Then the right kind of mutations have to build up in a single family of cells. Those abnormal cells then have to gain some kind of survival advantage, and their local environment has to allow them to stick around. After all that, really, evolution, the survival of the fittest, most aggressive cells, it just does the rest. So that brings us right back to where we started, doesn't it? Cancer is not an alien invader. It is our own biology, our own cells operating after the normal restraints and safeguards have been removed. Now, understanding this doesn't make the disease any less frightening, but it does make it intelligible. And from that understanding comes rational treatment, realistic expectations, and maybe most importantly, the power to have honest conversations about what is truly happening inside the body.